Uh, what am I doing? I'm not even drunk
God,
yet.
effing believable.
Yes. Well, Steve, there are two of us.
Just
Do
the
we want to
two
make...
of us. Dun, 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 dun,
Oh, please
just the
don't.
two of us.
Please don't do that.
Oh, come on.
You're hurting my feelings.
No.
I've played that song so many times at weddings. It's like,
See, A Perfectly Wonderful
PTSD.
Song is ruined because you had to play it for people that absolutely had zero
Steve,
appreciation for it.
marriage was ruined. Like the whole concept was ruined. Playing weddings. Yeah.
Hey, boys and girls, good to see y'all here.
Yeah.
What a shit show! Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a pretty good shit show. That's why there are two of us sitting here.
Let's definitely play What's in the House. And oh my god. So change of plans.
Yeah.
One of our pals that were going to appear on the show tonight had a personal family emergency, a quite serious one. So we wanted to do this right with those guys, and so we've moved
Punted.
that. We punted until the next episode for that. So so we decided instead, because of all the stuff that's been going on this week, that we're just going to wing it. You guys have had questions, and it's the first day after the new moon, and all hell's breaking loose in every way possible, good and bad. And now I'm hearing that stupid echo again.
No.
Only,
guys, just so you know, Steve and I sat here where I got to listen to Steve say one for about 25 minutes trying to solve this echo crap before we came on here. And we thought we had it solved, and apparently not now. So can you guys chime in? Can you hear it when Steve talks? Are you hearing an echo? Yeah, Mark.
One. Only I think I know what the fix is this time.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Input. Output to your device. I think it's this one. Analog. One. No, it's not that one.
Oh, Simon.
One.
Oh, whoa. Now I'm echoing. What did you do?
I don't know. I'm screwing everything up.
Oh, man.
One. And
get to the gear saying he does not hear an echo. So that's good.
Analog 1 and 2.
Oh, crap.
Hold on. One. Analog 1 and 2. One. All right. Well, whatever I did to fix it has been undone. So if you guys hear a faint little slap back on your end, let me know.
Now you're just arena rock ready, Steve.
Hello. And if you don't, great. If you do, let me know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fix it, but I probably won't. But if you guys don't hear it, I'm not going to. Oh, you hear slapback, PJ? Carlos says no. PJ says yes.
Yeah, but then Carlos said it's back to Steve, so it came back. So it's definitely the ghost in the machine tonight, guys.
One.
Just not too bad, Carlos.
One. Actually, it's not me this time. It's the freaking stream.
Huh.
All right.
Well, the show must go on. That's
not my fault. I did my thing, and the machinery is doing its.
It's totally your fault. It's picking up on your vibe. You're just too much for the signal.
So we were already juggling like madmen
Yeah.
this last week. Literally just bouncing off the walls juggling. And
PJ, that dude, you rule.
PJ scores a home run.
I heard you twice the first time.
So Pete Thorne texts me. He says, I got a buddy that wants to get a PS 100, and he copied this gentleman on the text to introduce me to him. And so I was texting a response back, and my phone rings. It's my wife, and she says, I've been in a car accident. And I'm just like, okay, where are you? Are you okay? How, and then I get, one of the guys, and we haul ass over there. And by the time we get there, she's got all the puppets like dancing to her with her, she's like running the whole show. It's mind blowing. She's just got everybody. She's got a guy out there, a guy that lives in the building in front of where the accident occurred. He comes out, he talks to her a little bit. They get friendly. He runs back into his apartment and comes out with one of those bright orange reflective vests and goes out in traffic and starts directing traffic around the car for her.
Sweet.
So by the time we get there, she's just got like pretty much everything under control. She's on the phone with the insurance company, and oh man, what a scene. And so we end up the tow truck driver is trying to get us to take the car to a tow yard, not because it needs to, but because he wants to get the fees, the storage fees. And I said, no, we're taking it home. And he's like, no, we got to take it to the yard. You probably live on some narrow street. I can't get it up your driveway. I said, we don't live on a narrow street. We got a big, long driveway, got plenty of room. And he's like, well, no, we should take it to the yard. And he keeps pushing that. So we just like danced around and did our other stuff that we were doing. And just like left him standing there for a while we were sorting everything else out. And he finally decided he wasn't going to go anywhere until he did it our way. So he went, okay, I'll take it to your house. And then we went, this is us.
Is it this dude in the picture?
Yeah. And this is us unloading Erico's. Yeah, it is. Thanks, Steve. It's gone. Jesus. That's the way the week has been going. This is Erico's baby. This is her baby. She bought it new. And she had no intention of it being gone too soon, but it's in pretty bad shape. So we're still trying to work all that out. But, so we get that. We get back home, and I'm like just finally chilling out a little bit in the living room, and I pull up my phone, and I realize that I'm still in the middle of the text that I was responding to Pete Thorne about that I'd never, because I was halfway through it when my phone rang. So I went, oh.
That was Kofivi.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, that was exciting. And of course the last 4 weeks now, we've got a couple of key parts for some of the products that we make. A lot of it has to do with the power load, which is supposed to start shipping right about now. And those parts have been sitting on a freighter out in Long Beach Harbor for 3 weeks.
No, wait a minute. Didn't you say it was sitting off the port for 3 weeks, and then it's been sitting
sitting out down in the bay in the harbor for 3 weeks, anchored? And then it finally was birthed a couple of weeks ago, and we thought, oh, it's birthed. They're going to start unloading it now. So today is Saturday. So last Saturday, we were wiped out and we were bored, and we went out. We went out driving, and we just needed to get out of the house and just get some fresh air. So we're driving, and we're going down the south on the 405 towards Long Beach, but no intention of going anywhere. Just like I finally said, "Where are we going?" She goes, "I don't know."
You
So
had the Chuck Berry on the stereo.
yeah, we're
Just
just start
driving.
cruising, and then she sees the Long Beach exit, and she goes, "Have I ever seen the Queen Mary?" And I said, "Yeah, you've seen the Queen Mary." She goes, "I don't remember seeing it." And I said, "It's probably because it's so big that you look right at it and you don't realize it's there, because I mean it's monstrously huge, sitting in the marina, just outside of the marina in Long Beach." But we're driving down, and then she takes this exit that's going to the berths at the Long Beach Harbor, and she goes, "No, let's go find that ship that's supposedly at berth." So I don't know if you probably heard this, that the president said that everything is like they're running 24/7, blah 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 blah, and everything is moving. Well, this is us going down in a restricted area in the port of LA. There's no guards, there's no action, there's no longshoremen, there's no nothing happening down there. And so we're driving around, and we go down, and some of you regular viewers probably saw this, where I showed you a picture of the freighter tracker software online that you can follow a freighter's location.
Yeah, that's
I
fascinating.
use that GPS location and entered it into my phone to be able to find it on my iPhone on the Google Maps on my iPhone, so that we could use the direction finder to go exactly where the ship was. And so we're going down these slips in and out of the harbor area in different slips, and I think it's right around the corner, and there's this thing where there's all these orange cones and stuff where it's restricted area, not supposed to go in. She just blows right by him like a champ that she is. And I said, "You saw those
Rules are stupid.
those orange cones back there, right?" And she goes, "The what?" I'm like, "Okay." So we go down and we turn around this corner, and there's all these seagulls that are eating a bag of cherries that somebody threw out of their car, and right behind the seagulls, is our ship back there just to the left of that oil derrick. That's our ship. One of those containers on there has our parts in it. It's been sitting there for 2 weeks. Just thought you guys would enjoy having a visual of the stupidity that we have to deal with on a daily basis, but there they are. And they still haven't delivered it yet, although they say the container is off the ship now, but we haven't seen it yet. It's supposed to be next week. We shall see.
And you just wanted to back the old Matrix up to that ship and load me up.
Yeah. So I was telling Joe about this, and he goes, "What? Were you just gonna like pull your car up and have them unload the stuff in the back of your car?"
Like, what the hell are you driving? Like, you have the Matrix.
Yeah.
You're going to drive that to the port and do what?
Over there. And here's some bolt cutters for the seal. The containers are sealed, and have to have a special kind of a cutter to break the seal so that customs can, spray it with Lysol or whatever the hell they do with it. Ugh.
Yeah.
So
that's bananas, man. And
yeah.
so they don't give you a like an accurate date of when you're actually gonna
Everything is
your
keyed
delivery.
off of each step in the process.
Okay.
The boat comes to the dock. The containers get loaded. They go to a marshaling yard, and then the containers are identified. And then each container, there's a freight forwarding company. So the containers go to their relative freight forwarding companies' marshaling yards, and then they unload them, and then custom checks them, and then they move them to a warehouse, and then the warehouse they check which pallets go to which of their customers, and then there's lines of trucks sitting there waiting for hours, waiting for permission to go in and grab some pallets and load it up, and then from once the truck finally picks it up, in an hour, it's on our dock. But it takes 5 weeks for everybody to figure out
Wow.
which way is up, and then it finally
Wow.
moves.
It seems like an industry, like another industry that is primed for disruption. If somebody could come in and do it in a speedy manner and cut through all of that crap, they would be the next whatever and just clean up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's
Not
kind
that
of
I know anything
that's
about that,
partly,
but
yeah, and there are shipping companies, I'm sure, that are taking advantage of that, and that's the freight rates aren't going up because it's more expensive. The freight rates are going up because they can use all this as an excuse to pile on fees and surcharges. Um, the freighters have to pay the port a surcharge for the extra time they're at anchor out in the port because it's traffic. And when we were driving down the coast line, the Pacific Coast Highway along the beach in Long Beach, and I used to live in Long Beach. All you ever saw was a couple of oil derricks out there,
right.
and
Yeah.
maybe some, some pleasure craft out in the bay.
Sure.
But
We all know
it
that,
was
Steve.
wall to wall containers,
Mm,
container ships.
yeah.
Some of them are even anchored out on the other side of Catalina. I wouldn't be surprised if they were just like chartering a little boat to take the workers off there and just go to Catalina Island and get hammered and play cards for a couple of
Yeah.
days. And oh
Yeah.
man, it's it's uh it's really difficult. Why don't you get the parts from the US? Well, it doesn't make any difference.
Well,
A switch or a jack or a pot or something that goes into an assembly, uh, and the cost of steel is going up, and the supplier has to buy steel, and every supplier in the Southern California are buying steel. So for
someone
a
will figure
serve,
out a new way, though, at least with certain aspects of this stuff. That always happens.
yeah.
And you're
Well,
like,
when the
"Oh, shit,
Borg
what
take
happened to
over,
that?"
I think that'll happen once the Borg finally take over. Then all of that stuff will just go smoothly.
Yeah. Well,
They'll just if you don't do the job, they'll just send you to the vaporizer, and then they'll move on.
Wayne, I'm looking at your comment up here, about me being, the most content and Steve is the malcontent. That's actually the truth. That's the truth. Steve is the malcontent, and I'm just not. I'm a poser. But,
Uh, yeah,
I
right.
do add some
Absolutely not.
balance to Steve.
Joe is actually the person who keeps me grounded. He's my therapist, and I'm not even exaggerating.
I'm just kind of like a born diplomat. I'm not a cranky. That's not my personality.
And Mark, no, you don't have to wreck your car to get a PS100, but if you do wreck your car and send us a picture of it, chances are we'll appreciate it enough that we'll try to push you up, up in the rankings of getting the next one.
The hell does that mean?
And
Right.
BMO, yeah, that's true. There's so many freighters out there anchoring in areas where they don't normally anchor, and they kind of move around. They have to move around and shift around, so they have to lift the anchors up, and the the oil lines that are coming off of the oil derricks that are out in the bay, the pipes that feed the oil, you know, into land, are
Yeah.
relatively close to the surface, the ground, above the ground on the, you know, on on the the bed of the ocean. So yeah, somebody dragged an anchor over one of those areas and lifted a pipe and broke it. So there's an oil spill on the beach. Yeah, it's just mayhem. It's mayhem.
Ugh,
And
got to be a
so
better way.
the ways that we combat that mayhem
Oh, I know where we're going.
is we figure out ingenious ways to do new things and help show people how to solve their gear
Well, wait a
problems.
minute. Let
And
back up here and to kind of frame this because I think I know what's about to happen here.
okay,
And it has been recommended to you on the strength of some of these deliverance videos that we put out that you might be the guy or a guy to do some masterclass videos on stuff, Steve Fryette stuff, amp
Yeah,
building, whatever.
our new buddy down under, Leon Todd,
Mhm.
suggested that we do a master class
Yeah,
or a
so I
series of
think
master classes.
when you told me you might pull this crap out here and do it live, I thought, you know what, Steve, this might be your first masterclass.
Yeah, it
So
could be.
why don't you present to the class what you got going on there,
Today, I'm going to
Professor
demonstrate
Fryette?
how to make a jalapeno infused margarita. How about that?
I love that.
Um,
I'll just
and
eat
I
the
just
damn
realized
pepper.
I forgot one thing, and I'll be right back.
Okay. Oh, Mark, yeah, there's a piece of malcontent in me. I keep it kind of hidden. Um, I'm just I don't know. I'm not like Steve, that's for sure. And I do think it kind of works out for the show. Uh, let's see what else is going on up here. What else did we miss? Everybody talking about what they're drinking and eating earlier.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, we almost had a good discussion of new band names. That was going to be fun. Maybe we need to bring that back later on. Okay, what'd you get? What is that?
Well, I've been having so much with this Fortaleza tequila that I got a few weeks
Oh,
ago.
yeah.
And it's so nice. It's actually, what's really nice about it is it's great for margaritas. Great for margaritas.
I was going to say,
And
you said it's not the sipping tequila of choice.
that's right. But it's a damn good margarita tequila. And today I'm using dry cacao.
Okay. All right.
I have
It's a bit of an oxymoron.
I have some grade A amber geez, they tell you everything about it except what's in it. You know, it's maple syrup.
Yeah.
And half a lime, a half a lemon, some chopped jalapenos, a pestle,
Oh.
a shaker. I'm gonna do it up this time. And away we go. So what I'm gonna do, oh, and I have a little sparkling water. I always put a little splash of sparkling water on the top. So but that would be after I shake it, because when you put sparkling water in a shaker, it doesn't go so hot, trust me.
It's over with at that point.
Yeah. So
Just
the
throw
way I
some
do it,
Mentos in there and
is because
stand
it's the
back.
simple, stupid way is I put the jalapeno in a shot glass and I just mash it with a pestle. So we do this, give it a nice mash. You got to be careful when you do this. The pestle should be the right size for the glass so that you don't bang on the glass too much, and also you don't want to do it so hard that you break the shot glass in your hand, because that probably wouldn't go so well.
You've
But I
never done
do
that
it
before?
in the shot glass, so because the juice of the jalapeno is down in the bottom of the glass and up on the sides and stuff. So you want to put it in the shot glass so that when you pour the tequila in it, it mixes with the jalapeno juice as well as the fruit. And
So hold that up before you do the infusion process and show the consistency of the pepper at this point. Is it nice and mashed?
it's mashed, but I like a little texture. I like the green stuff floating around inside, so I don't completely
Okay.
mash it down to nothing.
All
I
right.
like to have a little texture.
Okay.
All right. And so I'm going to mix the curacao with it because
Huh.
the recipe calls for, it's 2-to-1 tequila to curacao. So, all right.
Okay.
So I'm putting the curacao in first because it's just going to be a shot glass, and then it will use up the jalapeno. So that goes in there. I've got about 4 or 5 ice cubes in here. And then, since this is probably going to be my only margarita tonight, because
Misapal is busting your balls here on your pronunciation of curacao.
Yeah, I know. Curacao. Oh well, whatever
Curacao.
you say, dear. Okay, so 2 shots of that.
I've heard it several ways my entire life. I just drink it.
I don't claim to be an expert on pronunciation. All right, so there's that, and then
Me too,
squeeze
Bimo. That's what I say.
Squeeze a little lime, baby. And there's some lime juice.
The only crap thing is the camera is like not catching the mastery part of the master
This
class.
isn't exactly a cooking show yet, but I mean, you know what squeezing lemons and limes looks like. So it's probably all right. A little lemon juice there, not too much. I'm gonna save it for maybe if I decide to make a next round, I'll do that. And then just a splash of the maple syrup, instead of simple sugar, I use this. It gives it a little bit of a sort of a
That's
richer
actually
flavor.
the wild card right there. That's
Yeah,
strange to me.
yeah.
The maple aspect.
It just sort of gives it a nice sort of southwestern kind of a vibe, I guess.
I guess I could see
I
that.
say curacao, curacao. All
That's
right.
what I say.
Okay, now I know how to say it. I don't really care how to say it. I care how to drink it. So
Yeah.
I think that's everything. So goes into the shaker
Without the sparkling water.
without the sparkling water. Dun, 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 dun. George of the jungle. Dun, 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 dun. George of the jungle. About 12, 16 times, something like that.
What if you stood up and did some spin moves while you do that?
I ain't standing up.
What was the movie with the Tom Cruise thing right after Top Gun where he
Here
was
we
a
go.
bartender?
Check this out. Check this out. Look at
Whoa.
we're almost to the top.
Looks like an Orange Julius from here.
I have just enough room to put a little bit of the sparkling water on top. Bing, 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 just a splash. Beep.
That's right, Carlos. Cocktail. That's right.
And
do you mix it?
I mix it this way because I don't want to get up again and get a swizzle stick.
Okay. I'm jealous that you have
already. Cheers, you guys.
Okay. Cheers with my shitty drink. This is terrible, by the way.
And this is wonderful in spite of myself, by the way.
Okay.
You know, the maple syrup just bounces off of the jalapeno really nicely. It's got a little heat and that little sort of southwestern sweetness. And
actually, that's what this needs.
That's what everything needs. That's what everything needs. Yeah. Put some smashed jalapeno in there, and then you'll be like home free.
I was standing in Vaughn's, and I thought, oh, I need to grab a beer or something for the show. And I'm looking, I can't find anything, and this woman runs up and is like looking at the selection, and I'm watching her curiously because she's so obviously looking for this particular thing, and she finds this, and I'm start making fun of her for it. It's a complete stranger, and she starts telling me how wonderful this thing is. So I'm like, okay, well, what's the ABV on it? Oh, it's 8%. That'll do. So I brought it home with me, and I regret it. I actually, you know what? I have something worth drinking.
All right. Well, I hope that I did a good enough presentation so you can see how I did that, and I actually am surprised that it came out as good as it did. Because
this is what I'm going to
when I'm doing things on the fly in front of people like that. You know the old saying, the old biker saying, the probability of a one kick start is inversely proportional to audience size. Same thing applies here.
Yeah. That's a truism for many things.
That's good. That's good stuff. And I got enough materials. Listen to me. the manufacturer talking. I have enough goodies left to do another one if I so choose, and I may have to do that. So, ta-da!
Okay. All right.
Ta-da! You're welcome.
Yeah. So, Davis is saying that praise for the his new PS 100. That's sweet.
Thank you, Davis. Mr. Malevolent. Your neighbors, tell your neighbors, yes, we got everything under control right now, but watch it. All it takes is one flick of the volume knob. So stay the hell off my yard.
Years ago, this is when I lived in Colorado. I bought a house, and the day I'm moving in, the woman from the house next door, she walks over to introduce herself, and she's extremely confrontational from the jump. And she asked me what I do for a living. Oh, well, I'm a musician. She goes, "Oh, do you play any of that weird music?" Like, what? She goes, "So if you play music in your house," she says, "you can do it until 10 o'clock at night. But after that, you need to be quiet. And if I tell you to shut up, you will shut up." This is what she's telling me. Like, I've known this woman for 3 minutes, and this is her attitude. And oh man, I fought like tooth and nail with them. I almost went to blows. Look,
Wow.
me being Mr. Malcontent, I'm Mr. Peace and Love and Diplomat. Her husband, I was ready in our front yard one day over kids. Like,
she decked her husband in front of you in the front yard?
no, like,
Oh.
I'm out in the front yard doing yard work. Like,
Yeah.
complete domestic bliss. And the daughter next door had stolen things out of our house.
Oh.
And we said, look, she was one of 3 girls who would come over to our house. And we kind of knew who it was, but we told all 3 older girls, like, look, things have been stolen out of our house. We're just going to put pause on people coming over for a while. Okay. So I overhear, while I'm doing this yard work, I overhear the daughter telling her dad at the front door that my wife had told all the kids in the neighborhood not to talk to her anymore, which was like the biggest bullshit lie I've ever heard in my life.
Wow.
And I'm digging here, and I'm hearing this going down, and I wasn't as mature as I am now, and I heard it, and I just stood up and I went, "That's bullshit!" And then he flies out of the front door and walks in. "What'd you say to me?" And I'm like, "I have a weed digger, bro. Like, do you want to lose an eye?" So embarrassing. And so he's walking towards, kind of not walking towards me. He's foaming at the mouth, and I'm going, I'm about to stab this guy in the head, and he's about to hit me over the dumbest shit in the world. And I kind of flipped in the moment, like, okay, grow up. I went, Rod, let's talk this out. And I brought it down to the level to where we shook hands and kind of moved on. But man, were they a problem the entire time I lived next to him. It was a nightmare.
Well, when I was real young, and I had a band with a couple of friends of mine, and one of the guys was starting to get into furniture refinishing, and he was a bass player, and he made his own bass, and he figured out how to do the finish on it and stuff. And he was also doing furniture repair. His mother was an antique dealer, so he refinished stuff for her, and then she sent some of her clients to him. So he had this little sort of built-in clientele.
Okay.
And it was in this funky little it was in the shop was in this funky little area, which is really an upscale area, but you just go a couple blocks out of that area, which is down by Seward Park in Seattle. It's on Madison. There's a little when you go down Madison from downtown Seattle, there's a big steep hill, and down the bottom of Madison, there's this little funky area, and then you keep going, and then it's all into the really nice real estate, and then
Okay.
the water, and then the Lake Washington waterfront where it's really ritzy. But this one little spot's really funky, and there was this barbershop called Larry's. This is where all the brothers went
Mm-hmm.
to get the trim,
Mm-hmm.
and and so his refinishing shop was next door to Larry's barbershop, and there was a basement underneath that place that was a common basement underneath Larry's barbershop.
Ooh.
And Madison Park, yes. And the part of the basement that was underneath the barbershop was the numbers racket room, which was what Larry's barbershop was the front for.
The up to no good room.
Yeah, and Larry was really cool, older guy, you know. He
Yeah.
was very friendly, easy to talk to, and fun to hang out with and stuff. And we were rehearsing, you know, down in the room, and then one day Larry comes down and he just like lights into us. Yeah, motherfuckers, I just about slit somebody's throat shaving his ass. And he's just like going off on us that he almost slit some guy's throat that he was shaving with a little hand. And you gotta turn that shit down. And we're like, okay, Larry, Larry. And then the next day, Larry's was closed, and above the barbershop and the free finishing shop, there were a couple of apartments.
Okay.
And there was a nice African American lady that lived in one of those apartments. And she was pretty tolerant of the noise, but one day we got really rambunctious, and she came down and just lit into us and let us have it. You punks, you motherfuckers, I'm just trying to cook a dinner here. I got a date tonight. She's just like lighting into us, and we're like, okay. And then the next time we rehearsed down there was a Saturday, and we're making all kinds of racket, and we're taking a little break, and we're standing outside of the door of the room, and the woman that lives in the apartment upstairs walks by, and we're like, "Oh, we're sorry. We're sorry. We know we made a lot of noise. Sorry. We hope we didn't bother you too bad." And she goes, "Oh shit! It's the weekend." That was it. She only cared weekdays. Yeah, when it was the weekend,
That's awesome.
anything goes. Anything goes. Oh shit! It's the weekend.
Oh, that's actually really interesting.
Oh, we just fell out. It was so beautiful. The smile on her face was genuine. It was nothing made up about that. She was just, it's like,
That's
okay,
interesting.
she's got the, you know, the whole Jekyll and Hyde thing, you know, the real sweet part and the real I cut your throat part. It was great.
Yeah, and I had a bad day.
Hmm.
You know, the first time.
Yeah.
Brandon.
Way to go, Brandon. Yeah. Only it would that we were that clever and creative.
I like that. Well, but amongst us,
and no, I'm not getting, and no, I'm not drunk, and I'm not getting drunk. I'm just finally getting settled down after 2 weeks of absolute mayhem, and I mean mayhem. I mean it. Wow.
you know, I had a funny thing where last night I did get, well, I wasn't drunk, but I went out with a friend, and we go to, in LA, there's this bar. It's one of the oldest establishments in LA. Actually, it's over in Los Feliz. It's called the Tam O'Shanter, and it's you know the Tam?
Yeah.
One of my favorite places in town. They have the Great Wall of Scotch, like all this incredible rare stuff. And my friend Pat and I, we go there once a month pretty much and do a thing where we have these rare scotches and have dinner. And that was, was so stupid. Last night I did that, and then I had to race home and finish a paper for a class that I'm taking. So yes, I did get home, and I'm doing and I took an Uber. I'm safe. I scramble home, and I'm, you know, pretty sloshed, and I'm finishing up my paper. to get it in by midnight. But I had two. Steve, I have to say it. Sorry, the word of the banned word. I had two different expressions of Kichaman. There was one that was finished in a mezcal cask, and that was the badass one.
Ooh.
The other one was finished in a Pedro Jimenez sherry cask, which I think all you guys who drink Scotch and who have do the sherry cask kind of thing, it's really odd because the cask just winds up ruling the flavor profile, and you can't really taste the spirit of the spirit, the character of the distillery. It's like the cask takes it all over.
And what was the name?
Of
You
what?
said Pedro something.
Pedro
Jimenez?
Jimenez.
Pedro Jimenez.
It's a type of grape that they use. It's the sweetest grape
Was
used in
he in
sherry in the world.
relationship to Jose Jimenez?
I think so, like a distant relative.
Yeah, my name, Jose Jimenez.
That's right.
Oh, is that your crash helmet? I hope not. Did you ever see him?
No.
He was the guy
Well,
that
I
did
know
the
his
astronaut bit
legit.
on the Ed Sullivan show. He was
Mhm.
like the and Ed Sullivan is he's got this is when we're going to the moon, and Jose Jimenez is the astronaut. He's got the whole outfit, and he's holding the helmet like this.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Ed Sullivan's playing the straight guy, and he goes, "Oh, well, is that your crash helmet?" And he goes, "Oh, I hope not."
That's the voice.
Out with the voice. Yeah, like the expression on his face was, "Yeah, I don't really want to think about that." It was beautiful.
So we have a question up on the screen.
Yeah, because we're winging it. We thought one of the things that we could do is like catch up on some questions and stuff like that. So, hey, anything goes,
Again,
guys.
can you tell everybody who showed up later what's going on? Like why Joey and Stan aren't joining us right now?
Say that again.
How come it's just us two for the people who
Oh, that just showed up.
yeah.
One of the guys had a family emergency, and at the very last minute, he sent me this text, and it was like, "Oh my god, seriously?" So it's kind of serious. I don't really want to drag it out here, but life happens, and what was sweet about it, we were going to have Joy Brasler and Stan Cody from Fender on this show, and we were going to talk about cable impedance and cable capacitance and cable sound stuff, and we had a whole format, and we still have all the material, and we still will do it, but we've postponed that episode for later on, and that was the theme of the show, was a bit of the old in out, ha ha ha, childish humor. But we worked pretty hard on it, and everybody was really excited about doing it. Joy Brasler is the vice president of guitar of instrument development at Fender Musical Instruments Corp. And Stan Cody is I believe his title is vice president of innovation. He designed the new Fender pedals. We haven't really known each other that long, just like a year or so, and just casual conversation. So this is the first time they came over to our factory, and we'll get into the whys and wherefores on the actual episode. But Stan turned out to be like a real blood brother. The way we bonded instantly, and we knew the same things and understood things the same way, and it was just like, when you get together with another guitar player and you play together like you've been playing together forever. This is the first time I've spent more than 15 minutes with Stan. It was like 3 or 4 hours, and I swear to God, it's like we hung out together our entire lives. What a great guy. So he had a little family emergency, and so they begged off. So Joey decided that he didn't want to do the show
Well, we
without
thought so
Stan
too.
because it was the chemistry. It's going to be an extension of the conversation that we had while we were doing all of this experimental work. And
Yeah,
it's going to be really fascinating. So we decided to just push it down the road a little bit. You guys will really enjoy it. It was a great time.
to
We had a
bring
killer time.
the stereo firepower of both those guys.
Not
Rather
only
than
that, but the chemistry, you'll see. You'll see. Joey, I've known for a good 30 plus years. So we go way, way, way back. He was one of the very first guys that encountered our first power amp, and he was partly responsible for getting us into our first couple of dealers when we first got started. So we go way back. We're buddies from way back then. So I can't wait to do that and um and have that show. So you guys will really dig that. We actually took it to a very deep level, not like what you normally see YouTube videos where somebody, you know, uh, ex- uh, expounds about cables and why they sound different. We actually went deep. It's cool. I can hardly wait to get back to that episode. So it'll be worth it. Meanwhile, Carlos, the very patient Carlos Richardson, has asked about looking to get away with Celestians in my EVH cab. Do you like the mix and match idea for speakers in a cab, or should I just go for a set of P50s on your site? That's a great question. The whole mix and match idea started a long time ago as a result of it was more like one of the first cabinets we made had two greenback reissues in the top two positions of a 412 cab and two vintage 30s in the bottom.
you were trying to kind of fix things, right? With
I was
that.
trying to, yeah. And it wasn't a satisfactory fix for the obvious reason that the whole idea of a 412 cab is to increase the power handling capacity of these low powered speakers that were available when those cabs were first developed. They were 20, 15, 20, 25-watt speakers that you were going to drive with a 100-watt amplifier.
Yeah.
So they were going to blow.
Yeah.
And so you put four of them in a box. It was originally, the original Marshall cabinet was 812s. And Pete Townsend said, yeah, great, but our guys have to carry them. Can you cut it into two?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. That was the development of the two 412 cabs, a slanted one and a straight one. The top one was angled. PA systems were no good at the time. So the top speakers angled the sound up into the balconies.
The rafter.
And
Yeah.
the bottom cab, the baffle is slightly tipped as well, so that when you're standing in front of it, you can hear it. And so by splitting the cabinet into two cabinets, you could tip the straight baffle backwards so that all four cabinets are angled slightly upwards.
Isn't that funny though? It had nothing to do with tone.
Had nothing to do with tone. There was no Joe. There was no
Expression.
no.
There's no touring circuit.
Thank you very much. It was strictly practicality.
Yeah.
And so accidentally, out of making two cabinets out of that, they struck upon
The windmill tone.
yeah. And by the way, I watched this really interesting documentary on jeez, I hate it when I blank out. It's been a rough week.
It's that jalapeno infusion, bro.
Rumble. Dang,
Link Ray?
Link Ray.
Yeah.
Documentary, which was really great.
I haven't seen that.
And in the documentary, Pete Townsend is going, I got it all from Link Ray, which I thought, as soon as I heard him say that, I went, that's amazing. And absolutely at the same time, it was just like, yeah, of course you did.
Yeah.
He said, I thought Link Ray was the best guitar player in all of rock and roll when I saw that.
That's
And
cool.
so Pete Townsend is saying, I got my windmill thing from watching Link Ray, which blows my mind. That's so great.
I'm glad
Link
he
had,
gave the props.
yeah,
Give it up for the man.
really great of him to do that.
Cool.
But Link did have this really angry sound.
Mhm.
He was just playing these chords. He was thinking that it was the rhythm
Yeah.
of the drums that was going to give the song its feel. And he talks
Right.
about that. Oh yeah, well the drums really made it bah, 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 bah. And but the guitar sound, as elemental as it was, kind of mid-range focus, sort of it really sounds like he recorded that with a Silvertone twin 12. That's what it
Mhm.
really sounds like. Real
Uh-huh.
mid-rangey, chimey, ratty,
Yeah.
just beautiful.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking that is just the coolest guitar sound. And back in the day when I was downsizing my rig from 2 high watt 100-watt half stacks down to 200-watt high watt combos. Yeah, that's downsizing. It was just physically downsizing so I could put it all in a smaller car so I could sell my van. And um, I was at rehearsal and the bass player heard me play an E chord with my Esquire, which is this one. This is like 1978, 79. I played an E chord through that thing, through that 100-watt high watt. It was called the Bulldog SA 112 or something like that. The 100-watt 112 combo with an EV in it.
Bulldog?
A Bulldog.
Pitbull?
Which dog will eat the other dog alive? I know. But it had to be 2 T's because High Watt had 2 T's and the
Fuck
Bulldog
yeah.
logo had 2 L's, and I liked that. So that's how Pitbull with 1 T became Pitbull with 2 T's.
I
It
love
had
that.
it That's my homage to David Reeves, the 2 T's and the Pitbull. And if you look at the Pitbull logo, it is exactly the same font as the High Watt logo.
That's badass. I love that.
Ta-da! Thank
You've
you
been
very
paying
much.
tribute from the very beginning, Steve.
From the start of it all.
Yeah. Okay, so we're answering the question about mixing and matching speakers in the cab. And
Okay,
I
so
have one reason
from
why
the
I
first
don't
time I
like
played
it.
my Esquire through that combo, the
Mhm.
bass player goes, "That is one threatening sounding guitar song."
Oh, what a great word.
And I just went, "Awesome." I hadn't even thought about that. But when
Yeah.
after he said that, I just went, "Not only is he right, but I'm gonna like capitalize on that. And I'm gonna make it as much of that as I can because
Mhm.
obviously it made an impact." Going back to designing our own gear, Fane was gone at the time.
Mhm.
I had this DNA of the Fane sound stuck in my head,
Right, because that's what
and
you'd been
a
using.
greenback cab wasn't going to do it. A vintage 30 cab wasn't going to do it.
Hey,
None of
Steve,
those
real
cabs were
fast,
going to.
just for context, what year did you start using Fanes?
It was just like a couple of years ago. What do you mean? What do you mean?
No, no,
Me
no, no, no,
using
with
Fanes
your high
personally?
watts, when you were just playing, when you first got that stuff.
Oh,
So,
this like 78, 79.
that's when you first started using the Fanes?
Oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So how long did you use
Well, I
them?
had I first got a 50-watt high watt head, and I had
Uh-huh.
a Marshall Straight cabinet,
Oh,
a
okay.
1970. Well, so this was 70.
I thought maybe you had the whole high watt rig.
No, well, it's when I was in Seattle, I had traded my drum kit for a 50-watt high watt head, and I
Uh-huh.
had already bought a 412 cab from the local music store, a Marshall 412 cab.
And what Marshall cab, what
That
was
would
in
have
it?
been 74.
Okay.
So it was a greenback cab.
Just the yeah.
I don't think it had the greenbacks on it. I think it was when the zinc plated
And you didn't mess with
greenbacks
them,
without the greenbacks on them
and you
started.
left those speakers
I'm
in there?
just vaguely off the top of my head, but anyway, that was the cab that was available to me. That same store was called American Music at the time. It wasn't owned by the same people that own it now. It was owned by this real shark whose name I can't remember, but he eventually burned the store down. I know I'm going way off into the weeds, but that's what I do. Uh, he burned the store down for the insurance, and I think he actually got busted doing that. And then the name changed hands, and it became actually a legit store. But that's where I got that cabinet, and I used that head with that cabinet for the longest time.
Okay.
And I experimented with it a lot. And one of the things I did was I took the cab off because I heard that's what the Allman Brothers did. They took the back of the cab off to open up the sound.
Yeah, like a super
And
reverb with 12s.
yeah, what I
Kind
didn't
of.
understand until later was they took the backs of the cabs off as a reaction to the fact that they had changed the Celestians to Altex, which were much
Ew.
brighter and more direct forward in the upper mids and all that.
That was
And
gonna be nasty
they
with the
needed to
close
take
back.
that nasty directionality uh, out of the cabin by taking the backs off. They did that.
Mhm.
I learned later that when you take the back off of a 412 cab, the effective power rating of the speaker goes down because it has the back actually the air volume inside the cab is fixed and it acts as a shock
Right.
absorber. So the
Right.
the 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 air column inside the cab is fixed, and so when the speaker starts moving and loads that air column, the air
Mhm.
column acts like a shock absorber. It keeps the cones from like going that keeps the cone excursion under control.
Yeah.
So if you take the back off, the speakers get to flop around, they bottom out, they break. And I when I took the back off my greenback cab, I didn't have Altex in there. I had greenbacks and I promptly blew them out one night at a gig using a nylon
Oh,
cap.
but they kinda sound like cardboard at that point. Like, that's not a
Well, I
good
was driving
sound.
them with a high watt, so they didn't sound like
Oh,
cardboard. They sounded great until they just
huh.
started coughing voice coils. So, so when I started designing
Gargling
cabs,
Drano.
yeah, when I started designing cabs, I wanted the that sort of I was looking for that combination that gave me that smooth the bottom end, the smooth mid-range, the clarity on the top, and by combining the greenbacks and the vintage 30s, I got kind of there. Wasn't perfect, but it was better than just using all of one speaker or all of the other. But it wasn't the ideal solution. And the ideal solution didn't come until very, very recently when Fane started making guitar speakers again. And I worked with them to design their new series of speakers. So uh, I actually went to Eminence and had them design a speaker that has some of the characteristics of both of those and some of the characteristics that I institutionally memorized about the Fanes. And to get them to sound a certain way, they had to be done with paper voice coils, which are lower in power handling capacity. And,
Mm,
and Eminence really didn't have the technology together to use the Nomex voice coil formers, which can handle more heat.
mm.
But they require special adhesives, and Eminence at that time wasn't one of those companies that would change the way they did things so much to accommodate custom requests. They would make it
You could do tiny
brighter,
little tweaks.
mid-rangier, bigger magnet, smaller magnet, less power, more power. They would, big dust cap, small dust cap. They would make these kinds of things,
Within
but
the range of their normal manufacturing process. They're
because
not
their
doing.
normal manufacturing process involved making 10,000 speakers a day,
Right, right, yeah.
and making them cost effective. So some of the finer points of the manufacturing specialized speakers, just like that's out of our bailiwick. Sorry.
Mhm.
So, but the P50 was a great speaker for the longest time because of that. And I said, okay, it's okay that they can only handle 50 watts because we're putting four of them in a 412 cab. So no sweat. We used those for the longest time. And then when Fane came around and said, we're going to start making speakers again, then we switched to Fane. So back to your question, Carlos. The reason for not mixing speakers is because if you're miking them, you can only mic. You have to
That's
mic
my big reason.
you have to use multiple mics to get both the sounds of the speakers blended,
Right.
and the attendant phase cancellation issues and all that. It's a pain in the ass.
It
It
might
isn't
sound
practical.
kinda
It
cool in
doesn't
the
really
room
work. It only
with the
works when
blend.
you're sort of standing in front of it 5 feet away or whatever.
Right.
But in the practical reality of a speaker system, which is supposed to be amplifying the sound, I was reproducing your amplified sound uniformly across the whole cab. That doesn't happen, and that's why mixing speakers doesn't really work. Also, different speakers behave differently, and so when you mix speakers together in a cabinet, it creates sort of a comb filter. Certain characteristics of the
Right.
two the two less efficient speakers, for example, like greenbacks, mixed together with more sensitive speakers like vintage 30s, for example, they tend to clash inside the cabinet and they create some,
Hmm.
well, they create a different sort of signature. Is it a good signature? In certain circumstances, it could be, oh, I like that. And in other circumstances, oh, no, that sucks. So it really depends on the player.
Yeah,
But
but your main point of that's never going to come across in a recording situation
because
because
it
you're going
isn't
to
going to all
isolate
come
it
out of
and
one speaker.
just catch that
Exactly.
one speaker.
Right.
So the
Right.
thing for Carlos here is, you know, for his specific situation, it's kind of like, well, Carlos, what head are you using, and what are you looking to achieve with the speaker switch in your cab?
So
You know,
that would
what's
be
the
good to know. It's always good to
yeah.
know a little bit more context when you ask a technical question like that so that we can so that we can answer more effectively for your application. But just as you framed it, um, the Celestians have a higher sensitivity than the P50s, and
Hmm.
they have a little bit more mid-range content. So depending on what Celestians are in there, if they're more if they're closer in behavior to vintage 30s, they're going to be tubby on the bottom and kind of they have a little bit of that claw on the top, which is sort of
Mhm.
unpleasant. There's a certain mid-range quality about vintage 30s that people sort of universally like, but they come together with some other garbage that you generally don't.
Well, it depends on how you're setting up your amplifier and what you're drawing out of those speakers,
Right.
right? Like for
So the
some things,
speakers on
they're
our
great.
right. So the speakers on our site are either the Fanes or the P50s. The P50s are the 50-watt speakers. They tend to be a little bit more scooped. They're generally designed to be front mounted so that they have a wider open sort of characteristic.
Mm.
And it also depends on the cab. Now the EVH cab is designed similar to a Marshall cab, which already has sort of a sloppy low end. The P50s may not be a great mix in that cab because the cab leaks air and the P50s are a low powered speaker. So the bottom end could kind of flub out. The
Yeah,
F70s would actually be the better choice in that cab because it'll give you a smoother mid range like you're
yeah,
already used to,
right.
but it'll smooth out the claw on the top and tighten up the low end. So
The whole
that's what,
Fane thing, man.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
balance,
yeah.
baby.
Balance, baby.
Yeah, yeah. Um. Oh, Carlos did chime in here with a little more detail.
EVH badge on it, I think is a it may be a 20-watt Celestion or, just word up. A Vintage 30 is not a 30-watt speaker, it's a 60 to 70-watt speaker, and so, Celestion, of course, always has this sort of, habit of calling a speaker of a certain power rating, like calling it a 20-watt speaker, because
Why
that
do they?
conveys to you that it's going to behave like a 20-watt speaker, even though it would handle more power. And that's the way guitar players digest technical information like that.
Well,
Vintage
it's
30. Oh, I like those vintage 30s that get that 30-watt sound. Well, there's 70-watt speakers, 60,
well, it's
70.
reasonable to assume that what it's
That's
called
right.
is
And
what it
they
is.
want you to assume that. And that, of course, once you start getting like really down the rabbit hole into that stuff, you kind of go, wait a minute, why are they saying this but doing that? Well, that's part of the journey. Separate That's what the malcontents is really about, separating the marketing bullshit and the chaff from
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
reality so that you
Right,
can
right.
digest it properly and make an informed decision about
Oh,
what are you actually getting and what is it going to do for you.
Steve, this is good stuff from Carlos. He's talking about liking a really mid-range heavy sound as a seven-string player, so he needs the bottom end to be super tight with this super kind of present. Uh, you you know the kind of tonal profile he's looking for now.
Pardon me for
So
licking my fingers all the time, but I've got maple syrup all over my fingers from
I
sticky bottle, so
I want the jalapeno infusion. That's what I want.
It is nice. It's working for me. Um, yeah, the blue guitar amp, uh, is, you're talking about a modeling amp here, and some of the delicate parts of the behavior that you're really trying to get at the essence of aren't gonna be there until you really drive it with an amp that makes them behave that way. So, although I always recommend using a guitar speaker system and not a
Like
flat,
the
lifeless, solid-state power amp with a
right.
full range an FR speaker system, which is basically a hi-fi speaker trying to, masquerading as a guitar cab. Those are the FR thing is okay for reproducing the the soundscape coming out of the modeler.
Mhm.
What you don't get, of course, is the feel, the interaction, the thing, that sort of emotional connection that you're playing a whole instrument. The guitar and the amplifier together are an instrument, as opposed to a guitar plugged into an appliance that's reproducing a sound. And of course, then you have to then you have to factor in that the modeler, as cool as it is, it's still going to have it's still going to be lacking in the dynamic department. Okay, what's the advantage of like we always say, the advantage of modelers is the convenience,
There's
the
lots of
variety
them.
of sounds, the
Yeah.
the plug and play, the grab and go mentality. The guys that are
Mhm.
playing in like a lot of the artists that we deal with that are out touring, they're playing in 50 different kinds of bands.
Oh, yeah.
I'm playing with Cher this week, and I'm playing with REO Speedwagon the next week. The guys that are out there doing multiple different kinds of gigs, they need to okay, there's one of the guys we worked with, he does this jam night down in Santa Monica at Harvell's every Monday night. So if whoever's running a jam calls a Rolling Stones song, what does he do? He whips out his iPhone and he finds he finds the song, and he like pulls up. He's got favorites. He's got
Right.
a quad cortex. He pulls up his Keith Richards sound and clicks
Yeah,
on the star.
or better yet, if he doesn't have it, he can go, "I'll just download that shit. I'll just plug it
If he
plug
doesn't
in the
have it,
preset
yeah, he
right now."
downloads it on the fly, but he has most of them. So he just shows
Yeah.
me, okay, so when they call this song, I just go blip, 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 and I got the Keith Richards,
And
the
that's pretty
Esquire,
damn cool.
the
That's
Esquire,
pretty damn
the
cool.
the Telecaster Deluxe, the Keith Telecaster with the humbucker, the hollow body F shaped
Yeah.
F01 one. He pulls that up and he plays that song with it, and everybody's like aghast. It's like, wow, you totally nailed that sound. And he is guy that when he goes and records, he brings artillery. But when he's on those gigs where it's I need this, I need this, I need that, and you're in
Yeah.
like 18 different idioms a night,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great tool to have.
Yep.
Um, Having said that, he just bought an LX2 a couple of months ago, and it's like, oh man, it's just like finally. So when you're using something like the modeler, you want to turn off the cab model and the power amp model and run into a real tube power amp and a real guitar cab, and then you're way closer to the goal.
But then
But
it's just kind of
again,
funny because
there are a variety of reasons for doing it every possible way, and I'm not saying any
yeah.
one of them is bad. I'm just saying I prefer
Well,
I
but then
prefer
once you
you
get
know
that close, it's kinda like, well, just have the damn tube amp rig and go that way. When I was doing, kind of like at the apex of my sideman work, I had I had a lot of different rigs, you know, and it all depended upon, how much time was I gonna have on stage, what was my role in the band, um, you know, if like my own gigs, yeah, I'm gonna show up with whatever the hell I want,
Mm,
if I have it long enough to sound check and get everything right. But I had modeling rig stuff, and it was great for what it was, as long as you're not expecting it to be what it isn't. And I think that's kind of the main thing is just, having your
yeah.
expectations kind of in place.
Yeah,
Hey, I wanted
you know what, Joe? You know what I would like you to do? I would like you to sort of expand on this, um
uh-oh.
how do I turn this off? How do
The
I
comment?
Yeah.
Oh, that.
Um, um, I want you to comment on this because you actually did, we just actually talked about this the other day. Um, you just did Joe just did a couple of really, really killer Deliverance demo videos. And somebody else mentioned something about the old, was it Carlos said something about the mid-range? Who said that about the mid-range? We'll get to it. But the old school amplifier behavior and characteristic applied to modern music idioms in 7 and 8 strings and stuff like that. And you did the perfect blend of that old school saturated mids, chunky bottom, but not super tight, super not modern, super stiff thing together, and it just sounded like the best of both worlds. It was
Oh, cool.
chunky,
Thank you.
it was full, it was rich in the mid range, and it had nice harmonics, but it was like rhythmically tight. Da, 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 da. It was what got me so excited. So I'd like you to sort of expand on that a little bit because I
Oh,
think that's
sure,
relevant
sure.
here.
Well, the first thing that I think of was the other day. I actually had a few minutes where I sat down and I looked at those videos and I answered people who had commented on them.
Mm.
And there was one guy who came on and was kind of, a little bit sheepish about it, a little meek. He was like, this isn't, basically was saying like, this isn't really heavy. This isn't really like, genty modern metal. You're playing a 7 string, but it's not really, it doesn't sound as heavy as, maybe one would think. Like, you know, I think he called it like post Meshuggah kind of stuff. And, you know, I answered that. And the way I answered it was, just completely truthfully, like, I'm totally not that guy. I love Meshuggah and I love some extreme metal. I love listening to it, but I've never learned a Meshuggah riff in my life, although I've listened to them like crazy. I don't hear tone that way. And when I do the demos, when I do my own music or I do demos for Fryette stuff, I'm just thinking about how I would do something for myself. And I knew, okay, I'm playing a 7 string here. So when people see that, they go, okay, it's going to be, chugga, 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 or, super whatever. And I can't even play that way. Like I'm not that guy. But if you put a 7 string in my hand, I can do a thing with that, with that amplifier and my brain and that guitar. And that's what I did. And I knew when I was recording that track, like, okay, the way I'm setting this up tonally is not the way most guys who play that kind of music would do it. And that's almost why I proceeded down that route, because I thought, I dig the 7 string and I was excited to do that track, but I just kind of did it my own way. The way that I wanted to hear it. And there was a lot more mids, even in that rhythm tone, than I think that you would normally hear in kind of the genty sort of thing. So, am I kind of getting close to this, Steve, to
Yeah,
answering this?
I think so. I mean,
And
the
actually,
thing.
Carlos, I would love to know what you think, because you were one of the first guys who chimed in on the show asking for some 7 string content.
Yeah,
And
and that's partly why we did it.
yeah, and I'm assuming, you're a 7 string player. So I don't know, like, are you playing music that's, would be extreme metal, or, that's super tight? The worst thing that the guy in that comment said was that my rhythmic approach or the tone or whatever was sounded limp wristed.
Limp wristed, yeah, yeah, okay,
Ouch.
fine. You come over and show us how it's really done when I see stuff like
That,
that.
you know what? It doesn't hurt my feelings. It's like I know I'm not a metal guy, and I'm
Yeah,
not
I know
trying
that,
to be a
but
metal
when I
guy.
see comments like that, I'm like going, when I see comments like that, the first thing I think of is like, okay, armchair quarterback, but, and by the way, Monovidge, thank you. I appreciate that. Um, you don't really realize how much trauma you've gone through, even if you come out of a car accident okay, and you think, "Oh, I'm fine." There's there's some real trauma involved there, and it takes a few days for it to come to the surface. So it's pretty interesting. She's fine, thank you. Um, uh, but we're going to go see our local family doc just to make sure, because you never know. And I see that, but I wasn't even there, and I'm traumatized.
Yeah.
It just happens. All kinds of things you just shift. You mentally shift from all the 90 things that I really got to get to do today to fuck all that. This is what I'm dealing with right now.
Yeah.
And now about the monitors, I use the Atom A7Xs, and I've got a buddy that I think was involved in designing the KRK audio speakers. He's like, "Oh, you should get those; they're way better." And great, maybe I should, for what I'm using them for, what I need them for right now. I don't know that if it would make a difference to me to have those. It might. I'm going through a gear evolution right now with recording stuff and stuff related to getting the stream to sound good and this and that, and the IR stuff that we're working on, getting that to work right. And I've got the assistance of some really great people that know how to mic guitars, like Joe Barisi is really being helpful to me about selecting mics and figuring out where to put them
What a
and getting
master.
it right. He's not really an IR guy, but he's turning into one because he heard the power load. And he's like, I never really thought that I would have a use for this, but with the power load, I'm just like, going, man, I'm really getting into this. Why don't you come down to the studio and just and just sweep everything that I got here? And I'm like, yeah, I'd be there for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
We're trying to get the power load out right now, and we're going to use the Fanes and the P50s to get these voicings out that nobody else is doing,
Mhm.
because you can get all those voicings, you can download them, you probably already have them in your DAW or in an IR
I
package,
have
you probably
so
already have
many
that.
variations
Right.
of those.
So what we're trying to do is this is the speakers that we think sound good, and these are the cabinets that we've designed around them. So these are what we're going to be offering in the way of the factory IRs, and we want to get them just right. So, well, we're approaching our gear choices with that in mind, and so on and so forth. So right at this particular juncture in time, if I need to go and listen to what anybody else thinks it would sound like, I'll take the IRs over to Barisi's studio. He's got a PLIR there, and we can load him in there and listen to him on his monitors, and he'll tell me, "I like the sound of that," and then he'll put it up on his screen and go, "Yeah, there's a little phase anomaly right there. You see that little peak? Can you fix that?" And he's a great resource. So we're gonna have
He's incredible. He's
we're gonna have
really
some
incredible.
nice sounding IRs in there.
Hey,
That the as far as the translation of guitar, amp, and cab tones, they're gonna be what you need them to be in whatever monitors you're using or headphones. And the one thing about all of these things with IRs, whether they're analogs, cabs, which the PLIR already also does, or IRs, is that you think one is better than the other, or this one works for me, or that one I like the sound of that Celestion V30 better than this other company's Celestion V30. It's all sort of perspective and of the moment, because once you get it onto your system and you start using it and you get acclimated to it, then you're comfortable with it and it's working for you, so you run with it. But
that's
if
the
you're
name of the game, man.
but if you're way down the rabbit hole and you're going, "I think I need the wall of sound blah, 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 instead of the wall of sound blah, 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 or maybe the Celestion this, or maybe the Fryette that, or blah, blah, blah," and you can go crazy with that, just like every other aspect of recording your own material, you can go crazy with. Just like every band that goes and records in the studio goes crazy with, you can go nuts. I think one of the biggest and most important things about having a producer is he's the guy that's going, "Guys, we're on the clock.
Stop.
Fuck off. We got to make a record
Stop.
here."
Yeah.
So, uh, with all of this gear, comes the necessity to have some perspective on what it is you're trying to accomplish,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
get on with it. And I say that the person who's telling you this right now is the person that sucks the worst at it. The reason I don't record as much as I would like to is because I do the same thing. I get all hung up on the, what if I do this? And then a whole day is gone and I've got one bar of music. So
That's why I quit the Tone Quest.
yeah, you have to
That's exactly why.
you have to get it
Ben,
away.
Tom, Modern Vintage, and Carlos, thanks for the really kind things that you guys said about the stuff that I put up. I really like this feedback is really cool. That you were getting exactly what I was going for. I I mean, there are a lot of guys who would play a 7-string thing and like go for like the most compressed kind of, like you're saying, the heavily gated, super compressed sounding kind of thing. I don't like that. That makes me feel like I'm like wearing a mask, like a Halloween costume or something. That doesn't feel like me. Um, I don't sound like an old school, like classic rock player, but that's where I kind of come from tonally. That's what I like to feel. That uncompressed, super open, huge footprinty kind of thing. Feeling the amp breathe, all of that stuff, which Steve, your shit does better than anything else out there.
Sorry.
That's what I'm looking for. And, that's what I was trying to get to come through while sounding semi modern, especially on that 7-string clip. So I'm glad that you guys, picked up on that. That's super cool.
And meanwhile, you guys, if you haven't heard Joe's demo of the Deliverance with the clean sounds yet, I've listened to it so many times it practically makes me throw up.
It sucks
It's
that
so
bad.
it's so interesting and innovative, and it touches on all these little sort of characteristics that I like to hear out of a guitar. It's funny, we've been working together and doing this, and I'm really careful not to say, "Can you make it sound like?" Because I know that's not your gig. And it'll also send you off in a direction that maybe isn't the best direction. I can probably ruin your zeitgeist of where you want to go musically to do something by trying to interfere with that. So I like to let you run with it. But this time, that clean one, if there was ever a demo that you did where I would have said, I would like you to do this and this and this and this, you did it all at
Oh,
once.
really?
That
Ha!
video, and I just
How
listened to
funny.
it and I went, yes,
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
It's got that beautiful mid-rangey melodic, it almost sounds like a tube screamer kind of a vibe, but it's not a tube screamer. And the
No.
clean thing almost sounds like a Jazz Chorus 120, but it's not. It's all coming out of this one amp, and you sucked all of that out of there in such a, oh man, I just can't get over how cool it sounds and how
Oh, man.
effective it
Awesome.
was and what a great composition it was. I actually picked up my guitar. I'm like going, what is that chord? What?
Oh, that's
When you
funny.
inspire me to pick up a guitar, you've accomplished something.
Oh, that's cool. That's super
Because I've got
cool.
guitars everywhere and I have to go rushing by them. Yeah, I'll get to you later. Yeah, nice. I'll talk to you.
Oh,
Speaking of
man.
guitars, I got my Esquire back from.
Wait a minute. Turn it over. Can you show the back? Hot damn.
This is my homebrew 1979 Esquire, and my buddy Bruce Nelson, who's Dean DeLeo's guitar tech, put a new Esquire decal on it because the old one was flaking off, and he did a beautiful job of it. And um, he also kind of roughed up the neck a little bit. So
Well, he did that the time before, right?
he did that the time before, but this time, if you look at the first fret just past the nut there, it looks like there's a little nicotine stain there. He is really into the weird little things that guitar paint does over time, and he said that a lot of the vintage guitars, the finish is darker right in here and right there because it doesn't get wiped or played, polished or cleaned that much because it's in this unusual place where there's no wear and it's
Right.
difficult to get to, so they tend to be darker there. So he
Huh.
just did a little bit of an extra tint there, overspray when he put the decal on that gave it this sort of aged look, which is cool, and I appreciate that sort of aged vibe,
Is
but
it all
I
nitro?
it's all nitro, and I don't
Okay.
really care that it's got an aged vibe to it. What I care about is how nice it plays since he worked on the neck and dialed it in, but this is just icing on the cake. He just did a really nice job of it, and every time he touches this guitar, it just gets a little bit closer to perfection, and,
I keep wondering if you're actually going to eventually do something with the bridge and possibly the tuners.
I'm not, and we discussed that.
Oh, we
Because
did, but
when
I'm
he
just
first
wondering if you
looked at
go,
it, he said, the such and such tuners, they have less backlash on them, so they're more accurate and the ratio." And I did what people do to me when I start telling them about the subtleties of guitar amps. I just feel like glazed over. I don't fucking care. I like the way it sounds. I just want the frets dressed. I want the action the right height. I want the intonation done, and I want you to rough up the neck a little bit so it's easier to play. That's what I want. Don't try to make me rethink the whole instrument. I love it. I just want it refined. And those little tiny refinements that he did just made it eminently more playable. And I have no interest in changing it
well,
in
but wait a
any way.
minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. When we
What?
first started talking about this, that's fine, that's fine. The middle finger of fellowship. Um,
I got
the
BMO in my
you
corner. So watch
wisely
it.
decided we talked about, okay, don't make a bunch of changes at once because then you don't know what contributed positively and what contributed negatively. So what you're doing are these small incremental changes, right? So you got the nut replaced.
Mhm.
You dulled out the back of the neck.
Mhm.
You had the edges of the fretboard rounded.
Mhm.
Now you got the decal redone. Like
Mhm.
you're going slow, and each time you get it back, you're like, okay, that was really cool. So with this one little step at a time kind of process, I'm thinking maybe you might go, okay,
Mm-mm.
let's
I
do.
have I
Okay,
haven't
you're done. You're
I
done.
haven't the remotest when I
Okay,
pick it up and I go, it's the essence of what it was with the little things that irritated me gone.
okay.
I've reached that point. I'm old enough, hopefully, and smart enough, hopefully, now that but you know me about guitars. I'm not a person that takes a screwdriver to a guitar anyway.
Which is hysterical given who you
Which
are in the amp
so
world.
I'm that's why I feel like I mean, part of the thing about the Esquire is there's so much history between that and me, and that I don't want to replace that or remove any of that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've done so many fun things with it. It's been with me so long. There isn't any. If I was going to try to get some other completely different characteristic, I would just go buy a different guitar. I don't need to screw with that. I don't want to screw with that because I'm afraid I would never get back to that. And that's why I don't take a screwdriver to a guitar. I let the guys that
But
know what they're
you know what's
doing.
funny about that is,
I let the guys that know what they're doing do that stuff so that I can do what I know I'm doing on that
but
stuff.
you kind of approach guitar with a little bit of like, this is voodoo.
That's right. It is.
But
Every
is
bit
it?
of it is
Because
voodoo.
you do not
Okay, look
approach
at it this way.
amplifiers that way. You're
Look at
like,
it this way. Okay, you're a whiskey guy,
uh-huh,
and you understand the different expressions and how they
you said
a
it.
and how they were arrived at and how you react to them, the taste, and you're, like, able to sort of absorb all that and articulate it to other people, you can discuss it, right?
Yeah, right.
And I'm that way with
I'm not.
amps. I'm not that way with guitars. You're not that way about tequila, right?
True, true.
You came over to the house a couple of months ago, and I gave you that bottle of was it Herradura, the Legend?
Yeah, uh-huh.
And what was your reaction? I've never experienced a tequila like that before in my life. Okay, so you picked up on something new that you never experimented with.
Totally.
That's
And
just
and
kinda the
my
best
my
way I can
ignorance
describe it.
well, but here's the funny well, okay. I just think it's
Some people are that way about
interesting.
metal. I'm sorry, what?
It's not a criticism.
Hmm.
I just think it's interesting, uh, like, you would never look at an issue with an amplifier as like, that's just voodoo," and if I change that capacitor, maybe I'll never get it back. You're like, "Bullshit. It's a capacitor. It has a value. I can pull that out. I can change that. If I don't like it, I just pull it out and put the other one back in. I'm good." And guitars
Wrong! And here's why.
Uh, but,
I've been through this.
in
Okay,
what
go
way?
ahead. Come finish your thought, and then I'll
Okay. Well, the other thing that I was gonna say is
do
that
this.
I think you are willfully well,
Ignorant.
where you stand with guitars is a willful sort of ignorance, the same way where I stand with tequila is a willful ignorance because I don't want to do what I did with Scotch.
Line in the sand.
Exactly. I
I don't
spent
need to
so
go
much
over there.
goddamn money on that. I
I don't
don't
need to
need to
go.
know.
But why did we draw a line like that for ourselves? I know why I did.
I know why
Because
I
every
did.
time I would go to a store and pick up a guitar or go to a luthier shop or go over to Jim Tyler's shop or go over to Tom Anderson's shop, whenever I would go to somebody's place and pick up a guitar and go, it happened with Saul Cole, it happened with, ah, it just happened with everybody.
Mhm.
You pick up a guitar and it just makes me shiver, makes the hair on the back of my head stand up,
Yeah.
makes the hair on my arms stand up.
Yeah.
Uh, Shabbat guitars, that guy
Oh, yeah.
makes
Yeah, yeah.
amazing, amazing things. He made this
Mhm.
thing that he brought to the NAMM show that had the snake head thing on it. There was just everything about it to me was right.
He builds
Saul
great
Cole did it.
guitars.
He made one of his Saul Cole designs, a body shaped, sort of a junior-ish thing, but he Esquired it, and
Oh,
it was
cool.
wonderful in every single case. Happened with Tyler, happened with Shabbat, happened with Cole, happened with Tom Anderson, happens with Gibson Fender, you name it.
Mhm.
Pick it up off the wall and it's magic in my hands. If I don't buy it and run home with it right then and there, the magic fairy escapes and it's gone
Okay,
forever.
except in your example, you have gone, "This is the one guitar that I love," which that's absolutely true because that's the marriage of the wood in the neck, in the wood, in the body, in the
Talking about
pickup,
the
and all that
Esquire?
shit. In any guitar,
Oh, oh,
because
oh, yeah.
that's a singular example, right?
Mhm.
And then in all of your examples, you said, "Okay, I want this guitar." And then somehow that guitar gets lost and they go, "Oh, we'll build you another one." And then another one comes along, you're like, "That is not even close."
Hmm.
What's different about this example is that's your Esquire. Like, you're not going, "I'm switching Esquires." If you switch the bridge out on that, you could put the old one back on.
Mm-mm. I don't wanna even go there.
I mean, that's fine, but
I don't wanna
it's a
go there because
different
here's the
men
reason I don't wanna go there. Here's the what you're saying is correct.
Uh-huh.
However, uh, one thing leads to another. So if I start pulling the screws out of something, then that one step begets another step and begets another step, and that's what causes me to go down a dark alley that I can't get back out of. So I don't do that because I don't want to go down there and then try to figure my steps, look for the breadcrumbs on the ground and trying to find my way back out of the alley.
And I don't either. I don't do that with guitars anymore either. I did that plenty,
With
in my
amplifiers,
early
I'm
years.
conversant with what's going on inside of a chassis. I could be blind and find my way in and out of that. That's my skill set. I
You could
don't
do that
that
with
that
guitars too.
just because I can do that with guitar amplifiers doesn't automatically mean I can do it with guitars.
You
And
don't think
even if
so?
I could, I choose not to. There, I
Valid.
said it. Thank you very much.
Drop the mic.
I choose not to. It's a thing just like some people don't like driving on the freeway.
Yeah, right, right.
I just prefer no. I'm not
Okay,
do I'll
now
take I will take. Here's why I'll take service streets, because once I get on the freeway, the traffic will be slow. By the time I get to the exit, it'll be the long way around to that shop. Then I
Yeah,
have to go back another quarter mile south to get to the boulevard. Blah blah. It'll take me the same amount of time. I already know that. So
right.
fuck it. I'm just going to stay on the service streets.
I'm gonna put my dog out right here, and Brendan has a really cool question here. If you want to take a crack at that, come here. Ollie. Here, buddy.
Let's see. It. Of course, it's a long answer. That's why you asked it, right? Okay. At the at its very root, the Sig X. Okay, let's talk about Sig X. When it when I was working on the Sig X, Guitar Center had ceased to be a Mesa Boogie dealer, and they had been selling rectifier heads like there was no tomorrow. But then they came to an understanding with Mesa that they were no longer going to be Mesa dealers. And we had already had the Sig X in development as an expression of our amplifier design that were more forgiving, because the whole thing about our amps has always been it's unforgiving, it's unforgiving, it's unforgiving. And we have always said it's not unforgiving. You just have to apply yourself, learn your craft more. And then the amplifier will it'll open itself up. You'll understand it. You'll figure out what it is about your playing that makes the amp seem like it's a barrier to you getting to the next step in your guitar playing development. And then you'll learn what it really is happening is you can hear every single thing you play. And what's frustrating and unforgiving about it is like the piano teacher, that when you're trying to play the scales and you're trying to read the music at the same time you're playing the scales, and you got the teacher rapping you on the knuckles with the ruler because you're not playing it right. You're not committing yourself to the exercise. Same kind of thing. Once you accept and resign yourself to the challenge that you need to refine your playing in order to get the best out of an ultra lead or whatever, then you cross this threshold where you say, I finally get the ultra lead. I had the same problem with Stratocasters. I was not a Strat player. I was unable to get along with the Strat. I was unable to get along with the Strat. I could told everybody that I knew, I can't play a Strat. I can't play a Strat. It wasn't anything wrong with the Strat. It was me. It was my mental block. Once I finally did get my hands around a Strat that I bonded with, I just loved it on its own merit. And found it comfortable for me to play. I started developing into a Strat player. I don't really know what changed to make that happen. All I know is I bonded with the guitar. I loved it. It felt good. And every time I pick up a guitar that I bond with, it's usually because there is some unknown sort of factor about it that I bond with in the guitar. And once I have that experience, I want to explore it more. It draws me in. I love this. I want to spend time with it. And in the past, when I would pick up a Strat and not bond with it, but I would try to master a Strat, I'd be trying too hard. I didn't
Mm,
understand. I was looking outward to the guitar to try to work for me. I wasn't looking inward in what I needed to do to rise to that challenge, which is what a lot of people do with our amplifiers, especially the harder ones to play. They say, every time you talk to somebody that's been using an Ultra a long time, they go, I don't understand what this unforgiving bit you guys are talking about is. This the most forgiving amp? It's the easiest to play, blah, blah, blah. It's because they have that relationship with it. They developed that relationship with, or they bonded it with it immediately once they first started playing it. So one of those two things has to happen, whatever instrument you pick up and play. That has to be the thing that puts you on the path to mastering it. And it has to be desire, it has to be an emotional bond, it has to be just an enjoyment of the process. All these kind of things have to happen, and it's really a lot to ask for any one amp or guitar or anything like that to just sort of hand that to you on a plate. It ain't going to happen. Sometimes you do get your hands around an instrument that goes, I like this. I could do something with this. And that changes your mental and emotional bias about approaching it. The same thing happened to me with a Strat. Once I got a Strat that got me over that hump, now I can pick up any Strat and play it and enjoy it just as much as my favorite one here.
Oh, interesting.
But it took me to get over that threshold, and that thing took me that one here took me over that threshold finally to now went, oh, I get it. I fixed my problem. And it just sort of made it fun for me to get over that threshold. And that's how I got over it. Now I can pick up any piece of crap Strat off of the wall in Guitar Center and go do what I do with it because I
Yeah.
understand what I'm doing now. And I also
Yeah.
understand what I was doing before that was the stumbling block for me. It was my stumbling block. It wasn't really the instrument. Yeah, maybe there was some of them that just weren't so inspiring to play and you just hang them back up. But when I played one that I didn't care for so much, I put it back in the rack. That's not a good one. And now when I pick one up off the wall, I go, yeah, this one I would rather have a thicker neck, or like to have more or less radius, or I'd like the pickups. I can identify what refinement I might make to it if I was going to buy that guitar, but it isn't a gate. It isn't a stumbling block for me to at least just pick it up and plug it into anything on the floor and enjoy it and have fun with it. It wasn't so bad. Click next.
That wasn't so bad.
Yeah. I mean, that's how we approach it. That's how we approach these things.
Oh, that wasn't so bad. No, it wasn't.
The going back to your question, Brandon, the Sig X, I sort of saw that as there are players that are lighter pickers. They have a lighter picker attack, and an amplifier like the Ultra Lead is more of a challenge for players like that. And there's a lot of players that don't have a heavy pick attack. And so we need to do something for those players, number one. And number two, the other part of the concept of the Sig X was that it was conceived at the time where everybody was doing a signature amp. Everybody had a signature amp. Lukather had a signature amp. Randy Rhoads had a signature amp. Signature. Guys that you never heard of all of a sudden had signature amps.
Ouch.
And I sat. I was at lunch with one of our sales guys, and I just did one of my little rants and went, you know what? Let's make a signature amp for the guitar player that can't even spell. He gets signed, and on the contract, he just puts an X. That's his signature.
This is malcontent shit right here.
And I went,
that's what this is.
Signature who? Whose signature? What do you really apply to that? Who are you anyway? Who is anybody anyway? That putting their name on the amp is going to make it more sellable? Oh, it will, because people will buy it because so-and-so uses it. Yeah, that will work. But at the time, my attitude was, if that's the only reason that this amp sells, then that's a pretty weak premise upon which to build an amplifier design, because so-and-so plays it. So I went, well, let's just make any guitar player could get their sound with an amp like this. Let's make something like that. And so the signature will be, you put your own signature on it, and that's the X. So that was the concept, is like, instead of having somebody's signature,
does that mean you make it like a more broadly appealing amplifier? Like, how do you do that? What the hell does that even mean?
Well, it's just more naturally forgiving. It's easier for light pick players to play. Some people thought that the clean channel on the Ultra Lead was too sterile. See you later, Carlos. Thanks for your great questions.
Yeah, Carlos, absolutely.
I don't like shared EQs, blah, 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 blah. We just looked at all the kinds of feedback that we were getting from players about the Ultra Lead and thought, well, we don't want to change the Ultra Lead. We don't want to un-Ultra Lead the Ultra Lead just because a bunch of people think it should be different. But there's people out there that are are going, yeah, that's not really my amp. And when we would do NAMM shows and we would have the Ultra Lead and the Deliverance and a couple of other amps, people would just sort of naturally gravitate to something, and they're going, yeah, this is more in my direction.
Okay.
And so I would just observe that and go, we really do need to address the players that play lighter, that want a little bit more of a saturated sound and more expressive mid
Mm.
range, and maybe less a more a more harmonically rich clean channel rather than as super clean, super sterile clean, and all that. And we could incorporate all those things into a new amplifier design, and that would be its own thing. And so that's where the Sig X came from. At the same time, the amplifier buyers at Guitar Center said, "Yeah, we're like exiting the Mesa relationship, but we need something to sort of replace that." And we said, "Well, we're working on this." Okay, well, when you have the production prototype ready to go, come to let us know. We'll come out and we'll listen to it. So we did that, and they came over and they listened to it, and they went, "Great, perfect." Uh,
Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. But then they started doing what they do. Okay, we want vintage 30s in the cab, and we want this and that. And does it have a tube rectifier in it? We want that. And they're starting to do this thing, going down the menu of all the stuff that they want to say in the bullet points, the
The
feature list, the
marketing.
bullet points.
Yeah.
Tube rectifier, vintage 30s in the cab, dee ba 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 ba. And I said, well, we don't do that. We don't sell amplifiers based on out of text list of features, right? Out of context list of features.
Yeah.
Just listing a bunch of out of
Pieces,
context.
parts, Frankenstein it together from what would sound great in marketing material.
Right. It was all
That's
about the marketing.
yeah.
And I see you, BMO. Thanks for hanging. Um, that was the thing that made it like, guys, that's not us. You're looking for some generic amplifier company to grind out a bunch of bullet points for you, and that's the basis on which you want to sell this product, and that ain't us. Ain't gonna happen. This is let's listen, look at what this thing does. It does this, it does this, it does this. But they had a really sort of a simplistic approach at the time, which was that we'll sell it on bullet points, and but we don't use vintage 30s. They're not really cutting it. We have speakers that work better. Here's why. Right over their head. We have an amplifier that the overdrive channel does this better. Here's why. But they did like the idea of it, and the one final stumbling block is that it was too expensive.
Hmm.
And they suggested that we make it offshore, and we just said flat out no. That's
What did they want it to go head to head with? The rectifier stuff?
Yeah, but they wanted to their Mesa had at the time a sort of an unusual pricing structure that was sort of artificially low, but the
Okay.
dealers were actually making a little less profit on each unit. So that's how the Mesa prices were a little bit on the artificially low side, where we tended to be more expensive.
Mhm.
And so we didn't fit into this price category that they wanted to slip us into, because we couldn't make it that cheaply unless we made it offshore, and we didn't want to make it offshore because
Yeah.
that's a whole different can of worms, making stuff offshore.
That's a
You
different
have to
amp.
It's a different amp, it's a different business model entirely, and when
Yeah.
there was no
Yeah.
way that we were going to do that. And so they said, okay, well, we'll take some and we'll put them in some of the stores and try them out. And at the same time, um, they were making the same pitch to Egnator, and Egnator went, "Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll do it offshore for you, sure. We'll fit it into your price point, sure." And off they went, and so that became the amplifier line replacement for Mesa that went into all their retail outlets just before the economy crashed. And then it became like a self-defeating prophecy,
Mm.
because nobody was interested in buying big amps and big cabs anymore at that time. So it just died. So fortunately, we stuck to our guns and said we're not going there, and we sort of weathered that storm. But that was, I mean, all kinds of things go into why companies make products. with us, it's still always about what do we think players out there really want and expect, and what is going to actually work as a real companion instrument to their guitar that will make it so that somebody can get on to the next evolution in their playing.
Yeah.
That's really the bottom line, and we're not
Man,
gonna walk away from that.
I think that's
Just
the only major amplifier that you've done that I haven't played. And man,
and now we're every week. When's the Sig X coming back? When's the Sig X?
well,
Yeah, it's coming back.
Simon, who I think is on the show this week, man, he played that clip with a Sig X. It was like
Mhm,
a
mhm.
Guns N' Roses. I played it for you. Holy shit, did that sound great? Simon,
And
if you're
please don't interpret what I said as the Egnator stuff doesn't sound good and anything like that. It sounds great. It's good stuff, but it's a different ball game. That's all.
say no more, say no more.
Say no more. Say no more.
Okay, so what does the Sig X do different from the Pitbull and the Deliverance
It
in
has a
one
more natural
paragraph?
compression. It has a different kind of a clean channel architecture than the other amps,
Mhm.
like the Pitbull 100 CL. It had two basically the same preamp channels that you could dial in differently. That went over people's heads because, well, which one's the clean channel? Whichever one you want to be the clean channel. The one that's got the slightly more aggressive upper mids or the one that's got the slightly beefier low end. You can pick which one you want for the clean channel and make the other one the lead channel, or vice versa, or make them
Have it
both.
your way.
Yeah, it was like, honestly, that went over a lot of people's heads because
But that's
in
one of your favorite
marketing,
amplifiers you ever built, right?
yeah, but in marketing, in that amp would have been better as a single channel amp, and that eventually became the Deliverance because of that. In marketing, you see it all the time. Every time you see a 3-channel amp or a 2-channel amp with a boost, how do they pitch it? Clean, crunch, burn. Clean, crunch, burn. Clean, crunch, burn. They pound that thing into your head. Clean, crunch, burn. Clean, crunch, shred. Clean, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Doody, doody, do.
And never the twain shall meet,
Yeah, and
right?
anybody that plays a straight ahead amplifier knows that those are artificial categorizations of
Absolutely.
soundscape.
Mhm.
And it ignores that there is a transition from state one to state two. It's not just you switch into this sound and now it's all crunch. There's this
I
transition that goes
hate
from,
amplifiers that do that, actually.
and then from crunch to lead, there's another transition, and there's all kinds of flavors and textures between crunch and burn
Yeah.
that you need to be able to access. But the amps
Right,
that are
right.
the clean crunch burn amps, the way that are pitched that way, that are designed that way, all the in between stuff is given no attention in the design process.
Man, I don't like that.
And what it does is it says, "Hey kid, you don't need that guitar, that knob that's on your guitar, you don't really need that. Just turn that all the
Right.
way to 10 and go clean clutch burn,
I
and then
want it
you're
to
all
all
done."
feel like it's all the same amplifier,
And it is.
just with
It
slightly
predominantly is.
different expressions,
So,
Steve.
but see, that's just it's just the way it's just my sort of contrarian nature to when I see everybody sort of jumping on a particular marketing pitch.
Mhm.
Is I just do my best to try to blow a hole in it and go, "Guys, what about"
Yeah.
you name it, whatever the argument's gonna be.
Yeah. But
As soon as I see something like that going on, I start, like, rebelling
you know
against
what the
it.
Pitbull CL was? It was kinda like the Life of Brian amp.
Okay, I'm listening.
It was, don't follow me, like, do your own way. Do it your own way. Here are 2 channels, like, set them up however you want. Like, no, it has
Oh,
to
I
be
thought I
the
was gonna
clean.
get a great Life of Brian quote out of you on that. That would have been really
Well, we could do that.
appropriate.
So that's a summation of what the Sig X is basically different from the Pitbull and the Deliverance, right?
It's just a more navigable. Oh, and the other thing is even though we didn't decide to produce it offshore, it was designed to be more producible. Like the Ultra
Okay.
Lead is much more labor intensive, expensive to build.
Oh,
Bigger
okay.
transformers, there's the insides, the way the features, it was just a more labor intensive amplifier to build, which is part of what made it more expensive.
Okay.
And we did want to try to get the Sig X into a more affordable price range without compromising its performance capabilities. And we wanted it to have a unique set of performance capabilities that just slightly set it apart from what the other stuff is. So at
Yeah.
the
So it
time,
wouldn't be like, here's the cheap version of the Ultra Lead,
yeah, because it's
right?
not an Ultra. It doesn't have an
Yeah.
EQ. It doesn't have that big stopping, that big steel-toed boot thing at on
Yeah,
the
you did,
lower
but you
end.
didn't want it to be like viewed as like, the squire of the Fryette line. Like, okay, here are the cool ones, and then here's the cheap one. You're like, no, it actually is a different thing. It might
And
be
I
cheaper to
understand
manufacture.
compression and saturation and squish. I get that. I
Hmm.
get that that works for people,
Yeah.
but the rectifier was just like way over the top with that.
Yeah.
Reinhold thought so too. So he came out with, the Uberschall, as his expression of, well, here's some squish and saturation and gain and a two-channel amp that has a good clean channel, that this is our version of that. And my version of it was the CL, where you set it where you want it, but people just didn't really get that because their mentality was already locked into the clean crunch burn mentality. So it's hard to undo that. And so our version of it was to get the channels to be a little more saturated, a little more singing, and the clean channel having a broader palette, and then basically more controllable. Except we went a little bit overboard and everybody went, it's got all these knobs and switches. Yeah, but look at how it's organized. Once you rock one channel, the other three are automatic. You just go do the same thing with those, except with a slightly different
Yeah.
knob setting, and then you're all done. And the
Yeah.
people that got that flipped out about it. So just like the Deliverance, there is a core Sig X group.
Sure.
There's the Ultra League guys, there's the Sig X guys, there's the Deliverance guys, and you know, they all have their reasons to glom onto these different sorts, excuse me, of qualities. And yeah,
I think
that's that.
I'm an ether and deliverance guy. So we are at the 2 hour mark. So why don't we do one more
All
and
right.
then
Oh, by the
and
way,
then head
PJ
out?
sent me an email the other day where he said, you know, uh, screw that 2 hour time limit thing. You guys are just starting to get warmed up at 2 hours. I like the 4 hour format. And PJ, I am right with you on that. I do too. But two things I do: I talk too much, and two, there's so many interesting things to cover that it doesn't isn't really necessary to like beat it all to death in an episode, because I want to, once we start coming up with some ideas or we have a discussion about something that we could expand on later, we go back and listen to it, go, we should really concentrate on this aspect of what we discussed in the last show, because it takes more time to develop it and open it up and explore it a little more. So that's, we're trying to like get it, we're trying to get it to the point where we don't go so long that we're just like drunk out of our minds and can't talk anymore. We don't
Yeah,
want to try to
because that has
cover too
happened.
much material without any foundation, and we want to try to
Occasionally,
sort
I
of
just have to run at the end of the show. I have other crap I have to go do. So it's like, man, I want to hang out, but I can't. So
yeah, yeah,
I think those are the main factors.
um,
Oh, that and Nico-chan says, "Shut your face.
yeah,
You're going
yeah,
on too
yeah.
long." So, I think it's just, different tastes. We have had people who said, "Hey, man, the 4 hours are awesome."
Yeah.
Like they'll say, "I don't even have to watch it all in one pop, but I can kind of digest it throughout the week and in different chunks." And then some people are like, "Yeah, you guys are kind of
That's true, but the the
the
the
verbal
the path
diarrhea."
splits and splits and splits and splits, and there's so much potential to do all kinds of different things that we wanna just, like, go explore that and do it right. Modern
Yeah.
Vision, I like this. I'll t see um this Esquire right here? It's got this particular sort of characteristic. It's got this wide open ka-chang sound, and
It's a
all I
high
really
watt in a
want
guitar.
all I really wanna do with an amplifier is when I plug that guitar into any of our amps that it goes whang, has that real broad expression. So it's not any one specific thing. The 3D-ness of it is bringing out what acoustically when I play that guitar is there. Or when I plug the guitar into an amp and it's clean, it's there, and then when I push the amp into overdrive, it's still there. So uh, I do like a big wide open palette because it makes it work better for a variety of different guitars. But it springs from my original, and we're going to get to this. My original inspiration for producing amplifiers. We're gonna devote an episode to this that leads to that, and it'll get discussed in excruciatingly gory detail. But it really boils down to it's not versus the others so much. It's just that I have a particular sort of obsession to get the more difficult aspects of an amplifier design to work properly. The
Mm.
low end without it being tubby, the high end without it being fizzy or brittle. Those things take more time and work, and it's exasperating because right when you get to the point where you think you've broken that barrier, then you realize that you've lost something along the way, and then it's back and forth and splitting hairs, and it's maddening. It takes time and devotion to sort of like, hammer at that until you get it right. And there's just not that many people out there that um, are that insane about acquiring it. I guess
Yeah, they
that's
may
all.
be focused on other stuff, you know?
Yeah, there's every amplifier manufacturer focuses on a different thing. They
Yeah,
glom onto different things than I glom onto.
right.
They're more Marshall oriented people. They're more Fender oriented people.
Mhm.
One thing about about the 2CP module I like is people said, "Oh man, is this like really got this Fendery personality to it?" Yeah, that was like the whole thing with Mesa. It was founded upon a Fender. And which Fender? Well, just about any blackface Fender at the time, because the preamp in a Princeton, in a Deluxe, in a Pro, in a Super, in a Twin, it was like the same preamp. The only thing that was different was the power output stage and the speakers and the cabinet shape. That was it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what Mesa did was they just took that platform and let's make it overdrive. We want to keep the whole clean thing, but let's make it overdrive. So that part of the job of the 2CP was pretty easy. Just encapsulate that in a module. It was like it wasn't a really deep thing. It was just stay focused on the goal.
Yeah, yeah.
What else you got, Joe?
That's it, man. We're at 2:04. It's time to
Yeah,
sign off.
you didn't. I thought you had one more thing. I've got like
Uh,
1/8 of my drink left. So,
I need to go get tacos before it closes. Um,
well, okay. Um, it's been a really we love the fact that you guys hang out for this. We love that you ask great questions. Um, we love that you go back and watch the shows later and post comments and give us questions that we can latch onto it and talk about later on. And we love to see our friends. Hey, Michael, great to see you. And all that. This is just a particularly complex grind of a week, and we're gonna chill out for the rest of the weekend and get our bearings back, because next week is gonna be mayhem, a good
Hey,
kind of mayhem.
can we do one more question? I think you can answer this quickly.
Yeah.
Um, bada bing.
I don't
IR
see the
length.
PLIR manual on the site, so I'll ask here, what's the max amp wattage for the PLIR? Do you know what the IR length is? Thanks for everything. Okay. The load in the PLIR is the same as in the PS2 and the PS100. 150 watts in 4 and 16 ohms, I think, and 200 watts in 8 or something. Go look at the specs. Don't have it right on the top of my head at the moment, but 150 to 200 watts on average, continuous power handling capacity. They all are the same load. And that's continuous, which most people don't do. So it means that you may have a 100-watt amp that you're plugging into PLIR, but that doesn't mean you're running your amp at 100 watts.
Right.
So it could probably handle more on a continuous basis, or you're probably not pushing it as hard as it can handle when you are using it. But if you let's just take a stock 70s JMP that you plug into that amp, if you push it hard enough, it'll be at 150 watts at 16 ohms. And the PLIR can continuously handle 150 watts at 16 ohms. So not a problem there. About the IR length, once you get past the initial 20 milliseconds of impulse response, which is the actual speaker reaction to the incoming signal,
Transient.
the rest of it is pretty much room, pretty much residual resonance. So the purpose of having an IR longer than 20 milliseconds or 40 milliseconds is to add more room resonance maybe to the sound. It doesn't really affect the dynamics that much. All the dynamics is in the initial pick attack. So we keep the IRs in the PLIR to a minimum, because that's what you need to create the impulse response that shapes the sound. You want more room, you want more, you want more. Basically, if you want more room, if you want more resonance, get it in your DAW, get it in your plugin. It doesn't necessarily need to come in at the IR attack response level itself, because you're going to put reverb on it anyway, which is what? Room. Reverb is emulating room reflections, and a good reverb will do that better than this sort of extra 100 milliseconds of practically infinitesimal tail on an IR. So the idea of the IRs in the power load is to give you the behavior and the shape and the reactive component of the speaker in conjunction with a great reactive load, so that when you do record it direct, and then you put your whatever your favorite reverb plugin is in your DAW, you've got it. It's all right there, and there's very low latency. So you don't really have to worry about it. We are getting more and more questions because, Axe and Celestion and 200 milliseconds and blah, 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 blah. Great. But just look, just look at the actual impulse response created by those, the graphic representation of the impulse response, and all of the important stuff happens in the first 20 milliseconds. And then the rest of it is practically a flat line. And that's just signal decay. which by the time you record that sound and add reverb, the reverb is masking and wiping out all that extra signal decay. So it isn't really bringing you anything special. So the IRs in the PLI are going to be, I think, 20 millisecond IRs at 48K. And they are going to be distinctive, not because of their length, but because of the density and the content and the way they're recorded. That's going to give them their distinct personality, and that's what we're going to be. That's what we're going to be focusing on. Yeah, and we're going to get pushback on that, and that's fine. If you want, a 200 millisecond IR, it's very, 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 very simple. You plug it in. You plug the PLIR in to your DAW. Let me see. I don't know where that camera is. Right here. Come on, you can do it without a margarita. Right there. Let me try to get the light right. The little button right there, the in-out button. A little in-out. On the analog cab, on the PLIR, it has an in-out switch on it. So when you put it in the out position and then come out of analog 2 on the back, Jesus, I'm sorry I suck at this, but I really make a great margarita, so that should be compensating for
And
all
you make
this.
a bad Vanna White.
Well, for all of the other reasons. Anyway, direct 2 out right here is the analog cab out, but when you hit the bypass switch on the front panel, then it's then there's no cab. That's the raw reactive load out. You can also get the raw reactive load out without any processing at all in the passive mode without plugging in the PLIR. That would come out here. So either one of those, you can get the raw reactive load out and run that into your DAW and into your favorite cab IR without worrying about what's the IR inside the unit. The IR inside the unit is there to, as a matter of convenience, as a matter of getting a really good sounding IR with good dynamic response that performs well with our reactive load, and it will do that great. I had that when we were getting together with the Fender guys last week to do the cable show, which we'll do in the next episode. I said, by the way, would you guys like to hear the PLIR and give me some feedback? Sure. So I handed them both the guitar and the power load plugged into, I think, the Sound City 50 into the Deliverance 412 cab, and they were playing it with the headphones on and just sort of hearing it coming out of the mixer, and they were both like, "Holy shit!" All right, that's the reaction that I want.
Yeah.
Not a word about how many milliseconds is it's just like, it's not even a concern. What's a concern is when you play it, you go, I hear my fingers hitting the strings and the sound coming into the headphones or in monitors, and everything is just crystal clear and dynamic and right. And then you can just do whatever you want with it in post-processing in your DAW.
Yeah, totally.
Offers both active and passive. Let's just get this one. I think this is a good way to end off. Offers both active and passive outputs. So the reactive load, you can take the signal directly off the reactive load without even plugging in the power load and run that into your DAW. Or you can turn it on and run it out of the direct 2 out analog into your DAW. And you can also turn the analog cab on and then take the other output, the IR output, separately into another track and run that simultaneously into 2 separate tracks and pan them. A lot of people say that analog cabs are dead, IRs rule. For mid-gain, onset of crunch, high-gain sounds that generally sound kind of fizzy with an analog cab, that's correct. But nothing does a clean, straight ahead, like Telecaster into a Fender kind of a sound. Nothing does it like an analog cab. And that's why we still offer the analog cab in the power load in conjunction with the IR, because there's a reason for it to exist. And the reason is it sounds big and huge and robust and wide and no latency and none of the fizz that you normally encounter with an IR, which is not just a speaker. It's the speaker, the cab, the microphone, the processing, and all of that. So there's a lot of things that in the sound between the actual behavior of the guitar and amp and what finally you carved tape. And that's why an analog cab still is very valid. And that's why the PLIR still has it. I'm done. Thank you very much, Bonder Vintage, for the questions. Good to see you, BMX Hog.
Done.
Hope you enjoyed the margarita tutorial.
The masterclass. All right, that was sweet. We managed to pull that one out of the fire. Zen and the art of everything.
Yeah. So, guys, tell your female friends that this is it's okay for women to hang out here too. If you hang out with women in bars, you can hang out with women here. So let's have some more lady guitar players here that like to geek out too. Number one. Number two, take care of yourselves out there, man. You just never know when somebody's going to drive across an intersection and fucking lay into you and it's going to be over. So take it easy out there. Don't get too stressed out. Keep the ground under your feet. Take a deep breath. Enjoy life.
And always
look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Life.
Joe, get it together, will you?
I'm about to press the button, dude. I got my finger on the nuke.
Hit it, baby. See you guys. Love you.